What's up you guys, and welcome back to another Reddit reading video. Today we're going to be doing r/ProRevenge, my absolute favorite sub on Reddit. I'm going to keep my big mouth shut and just jump into this one. Mess with my dog? I will salt the earth. Warning, long story, didn't realize how much background I had to tell. A bit of background first, to make this make sense. I rent a home from a guy that also runs a business on the property. There are two homes, his home and our rental, and our two work buildings, a small warehouse and a large garage. These buildings all share the same address. This is important. There's a woman that works in one of those buildings named Pam. Her real name, because if Pam is reading this, I sincerely hope she eats dick. Well, about 9 months ago, we got a dog. She's less than a year old and is still learning how to walk on a leash and stuff. She loves being outside so much that she will cry all day if we don't let her out for at least a few hours. Also, we have her on a special food and monitor her water because she will drink it until she barfs. We still love her, but she is dumb as heck. Well, the property doesn't have a fenced in yard, so she was stuck with taking a bunch of walks a day until we installed a dog run type thing. It's high up and she is tethered to it. It gives her a bunch of shade, about 20 to 25 feet of runaround / play space. She gets a reasonable amount of water all day as we have one person home at all times. Well, Pam comes over a couple months ago to tell me I should give the dog back to the shelter because I don't play with her enough and she's tied up outside. I rolled my eyes and say, thanks, but you don't live here and don't know our situation, and close the door in her face. Well, she has spent the last couple months harassing us. She tried taking the dog off the tether when she thinks we aren't home. She's been successful a couple times, giving her food, giving her water, playing with her, except for puppy kidnapping. These don't sound too bad, I know, but there's context. We tell her to leave us alone at least 3 times in person and once in writing. Finally, she gets fed up and calls the police. We have no idea she did it until the officer shows up. He asks for our side of the story and I tell him that we don't let her run free as this is a rural area and she's a baby. She could get hurt or lost. We don't want her feeding the dog because she has a special diet and messes with her stomach. We don't want her water because of throwing up issues and she's giving it in a plastic coffee container that she could chew and swallow bits of plastic and need surgery or die. We don't want her coming over playing with the dog because she uses her sleeve as a toy. We are now struggling to train the dog not to bite people's sleeves. The officer hears our side and checks on the dog and says not only is our setup compliant with the law, it's one of the best he's ever seen. He said not to worry, that we're doing nothing wrong and that this Pam lady doesn't seem all there and thinks the dog should go free. Do not let her do that. We contact our local landlord and tell him what happened, and that we don't want to see his employee on the property line for the house we are renting. I'm not asking she be fired or anything, just that I don't have to see her. The landlord basically says, not my problem, that's between you and her. I legally can't do anything. You have to follow the law. Well, we sit with that for a couple weeks and she starts back up again. This time we've had it and storm outside when she shows up. She gets between us and our dog and refuses to move. We're trying to get the dog from her and she won't let us. That's enough for me. So I took the bowl of water I was carrying and poured it over her head. No regrets. She deserved it. And she is in shock that I did that. The same way a Karen is shocked when someone calls her out. I tell her for the millionth time she isn't welcome here and she yells, "Call the police then!" Here's where the compliance starts. The landlord refusing to take sides of our repeated attempt to ask for help means I'm left to figure this out by myself. I said to the landlord, if you don't handle it, I will do anything I legally can to fix the situation. He said, okay, he's not taking sides. Cool. I call the police. I still have the card from the first officer that showed up and referenced him and told him how she's already been advised by an officer to leave us alone. The new officer issued a trespass order against her. The order specifically states that she is not allowed on the address to the house or any affiliated buildings or land on that lot. She's not allowed to come to the property for work. The landlord then gets mad and tells us to revoke it so he could use her for work. We refuse. In fact, since he didn't help us and told us to go by the laws, that's what we are doing. We didn't have a rental contract. He wants us to pay in cash for tax reasons, and he won't fix anything at the house, so it's basically a slumlord. Guess he was only getting checks from now on. And I'll be deducting the cost to fix stuff around the house from rent, as I am allowed to by law. In fact, I'm even willing to sign a rental agreement. Since this house is not up to code and doesn't have a separate area, I'm well within my rights to sign a lease and kick him and the business out of the larger house. If he tries to fight that, or he has to explain to a court why he didn't file any rental income on his taxes and then reimburse us for all the rent we've paid to live in a house that he was expressly told by the city he couldn't rent out, we found this out recently. His business is also dumping waste and burning waste on a property which is not compliant in the law. Guess who's calling to report that? He also doesn't offer protective gear to his employees, has a ton of OSHA violations, and doesn't post required stuff about labor laws. I'll be reporting that too, Because if you don't want to follow the laws, I have no problem with that. Oh man, this guy got revenge on everybody. The top comment says, to this day, she thinks she was trying to save an innocent puppy from neglectful owners. She's probably one of those self-righteous, like super self-righteous people that think only their opinion and their thoughts are right. Thank God the police had some sense. Looks like we have time for another story. Management tries to fire me. I turned the tables. I had a manager try and fire me for being rude to a caller. She wanted us to call internationally to confirm insurance. I asked the current floor supervisor if we could, and he said no. So I told the caller we couldn't. She ended the call and went to ask the supervisor if there was anything we could do and was told we could not. I asked him to email that answer to me, and he did. I got called in and told I was unprofessional on the phone, and that I was not following correct procedures, and that I was being investigated with consideration that I would be fired. My supervisor had no spine, so it was an agreement that I needed to be fired. I was told we do not ever tell a member no, and that she had spoken with the supervisor who had told me to say no, and he denied it and claimed I never asked him. Luckily, I had 3 years of weekly emails I saved and printed out that showed me every Thursday asking my supervisor if I was doing okay on the phones, how I could improve, and if there were any classes I could take to improve my skill and knowledge. Every reply was praise, with how I was doing well, how I was being considered as, or doing well as a trainer. I became one after a year. Every single QA review gave me 100% scores, and I was the only one in the whole team to consistently got 100% reviews. I had a large file full of customer complaints where they asked me to speak with a supervisor to praise my work, and then I'm given a certificate. I also included the email from the supervisor who instructed me to say no. I quietly put this all together in an inch-thick file and made 3 copies. I was called back to discuss my reprehensible behavior and to review calls I had made as evidence of my bad service. As we listened to the manager pointed out how cold and emotionless I sounded, I agreed that it could have been taken this way if one were to look for a problem. But my phone voice is always calm and careful, so that I am easily understood. I have been told how much it is appreciated by our callers since we mostly deal with the elderly in doctor offices, and they appreciated that my information was clearly represented, since misunderstandings can be very bad. I had customer compliments that often included appreciation for the way I spoke. 3 out of 5 calls we reviewed, she said, were the worst interactions she had ever heard. I said that was odd since I had a certificate for all 3 calls, signed by my supervisor and her, and certificates weren't given out until the call was listened to. The other 2 problematic calls were ones I had and received at a 100% score by the Q&A department. So I asked, well, my supervisor is telling me weekly that I'm doing the best on the team, the QA department is telling me I'm always meeting 100% of my goals, and the customers are giving me positive reviews. So, if my attitude has been such a problem for so long, why wasn't it addressed before? No answer. I demanded to be known why this issue was allowed to be continued for so long. The manager asked me to return to my desk, but asked that I leave my folder of evidence for review, which I did. I went to lunch, and when I returned, I was told there was a computer error that wiped my email profile and all saved emails from my email account, and my computer had been reformatted to fix the error. I asked the supervisor about it, and she said she needed to talk to the manager. I was called in again and told without any evidence to back up my claims of 100% QA scores and my customer appreciation certificates. They had no choice but to move forward. I asked where my printed copy went, and my manager claimed she didn't have it and that I had never given her a copy. So I pulled out another copy of the file paperwork and explained that deleting it off my computer nor the copy she had no access to on the company cloud, which is where I backed up my information daily. Something that was so uncommon, the supervisor didn't even know it was something we could do. I then asked for an HR representative. The manager said I waived my right to having an HR rep when I didn't ask for one at the start of this mess. I said the matter should be put to rest, and the manager said she was the one who decided this, and she was the one in charge. She also handed me a write-up and demanded I sign it. I took the time to read it, and of course, they had me admitting I was 100% at fault and that I would not retaliate in the slightest regards of action. It wasn't even the company's disciplinary form, it was a written in word. I was done. I decided just to go with the nuclear option. Instead of quietly trying to talk to the HR, I went above their heads. I grabbed the write-up and walked out. Manager went to stop me until she saw me walk into the office of the director of all the call centers in the company, a guy who was magnitudes above her and who I was on friendly terms with. He asked what was up, and I told him that the manager was in the process of trying to fire me. I gave him the write-up and my folder of evidence. He went from friendly, disinterested, to dead serious. 30 minutes later, he finished reviewing everything and said, "Follow me." We returned to the manager's office and she turned white when director told manager to call supervisor and HR. He kept asking her what he was trying to do, why she was going after me, and why she felt it was okay to try and delete evidence off my computer. He never yelled. He would ask her questions and then patiently wait for an answer, which she couldn't give. Whenever she would bring me up or look at me, the director would say something like, "No, don't look at him. You and I are talking right now." When the supervisor arrived, he did the same to her. No answers, just stammering and half excuses. HR arrived and manager jumped to speak over and give her side. Supervisor did the same once manager was done. They were clearly trying to run out the clock since HR had a small department and had blocked out time for meetings. I finally mentioned that this was the HR person that said they had canceled all other meetings today and she would be there as long as it took to get to the bottom of the issue. Manager looked enraged. Supervisor looked pale and terrified. I wasn't taken to a separate office to give my side. Manager said she had the right to be there and the director told her, the supervisor, that they had the right to sit there and wait. Both were told they were not to leave until he told me they could, because both were known to disappear and go home if any problems had happened on the floor. HR, director, and I had a nice chat. We went over my evidence and call history, listened to the call, and started the whole landslide, and then asked if there was anything I could have done better. I said I could have asked a different supervisor for help. I used the HR person's laptop to pull up my stuff I had saved on the cloud, and there it was, document after document, proving my slide. Emails from supervisor, emails from manager, all praising me, proof of my 100% QAs, everything. Director was almost gleeful that he finally had something concrete because there had been complaints about the manager and supervisor, but those complaining never did anything. He called the QA manager in and got a statement about QA scores and how I was professional 100% of the time. He pulled in supervisors from other teams who confirmed I was a pleasure to work with and always went above and beyond to help. It felt pretty good to know I was actually appreciated by people who matter. You don't get that often in a call center environment. They agreed that I had done nothing wrong and asked that as far as they were concerned, their matter was closed for me. But they would be looking into my manager and supervisor. They couldn't tell me anything official, of course. Manager and supervisor got official disciplinary actions with threat to terminate if they were caught doing this ever again. The supervisor was demoted and transferred out of the department completely. I heard that it basically ruined her career with the company since the actions were so serious. Manager ended up moving to a different office with lower pay and about 40 minutes farther from her home because her action against me opened up the floor gates against her and she could be fired or take far worse position. She ended up quitting after about a month. Why did the supervisor and manager decide they hated me? I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly what caused it, but apparently they had problems with me for a couple years and would talk to other employees behind my back about me, about what a lazy bad employee I was. Of course, some people agreed, that's the nature of the beast, but it was rewarding to know that most of them disagreed. Keep your paper trail, folks, and be friendly to the upper management. Oh my goodness. Good on him for keeping those backups. That is dedication to your work. Save them on the cloud, bring in 3 file folders. That is preparation at its finest. Being safe like that and protecting yourself like that really helped him keep his job, which is amazing for him. And got those jerk manager and supervisor demoted and kicked out or whatever. Get those people out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching this Reddit reading video of r/ProRevenge. If you guys have any questions or comments or suggestions or anything like that, just let me know down in the comments, you guys. Thank you once again for watching this video. I love you and goodbye, my lovelies.